This is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 323 of the FCPA Compliance Report. The FCPA Compliance Report is sponsored by Advanced Compliance Solutions, where I am pleased to announce a new service offering from Advanced Compliance Solutions, which is the Compliance Alliance. It is a three-step program that will provide you and your team a background into compliance and the FCPA so you can consider how your products and services fit the needs of a compliance officer. It includes a 2-day FCPA boot camp, a 30-day podcast series sponsorship opportunity, and in-person training. Interested parties should contact Tom Fox at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Today I have back with me Bill Coffin. Bill is the editor of Compliance Week, and this episode he talks to us about the upcoming Compliance 2017 conference, which will be held in May in Washington, D.C. from May 22 through 24. Bill talks about some of the keynote speakers, some of the individual highlights, and some of the comings and goings that make the Compliance Week conference one of the most unique. Listeners to this podcast will receive a discount to the event, which I will post in the show notes, and also have more information at the end of the podcast. This is Tom Fox. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the FCPA Compliance Report. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and welcome to a special on-location edition of the FCPA Compliance Report. I'm here at the Princeton Club in New York City with Compliance Week Editor-in-Chief Bill Coffin. We are here for the second annual Third-Party Risk Management and Oversight Conference put on by Compliance Week and Financial Research Associates. And I asked Bill if he would sit down and spend some time talking about the upcoming Compliance Week 2017 event. So, Bill, with that somewhat long-winded introduction, thank you and welcome.
Well, Tom, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to be here at the third-party risk event, of course. Some great stuff we're talking about here today, but I'm also really excited to be getting geared up for Compliance Week 2017. It's the biggest event in the compliance world every year. It's a couple of days where you get to rub elbows with the best and brightest in the industry. It's in a fantastic venue in Washington, but more than anything, for myself as an editorial guy, it's just a couple of days of just great content. You're talking about some fantastic topics. What's at top of mind for the modern compliance professional? Where is industry going? What are kind of the tidal forces behind the profession? So it's a really exciting event. I'm looking forward to it.
So the event this year is May 22nd through 24th. We're back again at the Mayflower Hotel, which you're right is just a fabulous venue and one of my favorite places to attend. I was wondering if there are any overall or overarching themes for this year's event.
Yeah, most definitely. I've had the pleasure of working with Maria Sonnen, our director of events for this, and we've been looking at what kind of sessions do we want that kind of cover all the things that need to be covered in the compliance world today. But there have been a couple overarching sort of meta themes that I think have tied together a large number of the various sessions that we're going to be having at the conference. I think the biggest one. I mean, you realize it's no pun intended. It's the elephant in the room, but it's essentially the political realities of what's facing compliance right now, and really what is the Trump administration going to do, or what has it already done, or what is it likely to do, that's going to impact the compliance profession. We don't talk about politics in compliance so much. It's not really our venue to do that. But what happens in Washington very much has a massive impact on how the modern compliance officer does his or her job. And so I think one of the big topics really is looking at Trump's first 100 days and going, all right, what has he achieved? What does he want to achieve? What are these first 100 days? What kind of precedent does it set going forward, for some of the major agencies that compliance officers often work with in terms of who's going to be running them, what will their agendas be like, what are they likely to achieve. So that's going to be a pretty big series of topics I think that'll be driving a lot of the content. Another one is the notion of international compliance.
Right.
I think certainly one of the concerns that we've seen amongst the Compliance Week readership already has been, with the Trump administration making so many, bold moves to try to pull back regulations on a variety of fronts. The question is, well, if you're going to have a lot of regulatory rollback in the states, what does that mean for a Fortune 1000 company that is actually operating worldwide and operates, within multiple regulatory regimes? So the question then really is, all right, well, what's going on in other parts of the world, in the Eurozone, what's going on in Latin America, what's going on in Australasia, what's going on in the UK, what's going on in the MENA region. And these are regulatory regimes that they merit independent consideration, just on their own, the value. But if you're going to look at, a potential world where the United States is perhaps not the most stringent compliance regime to live by anymore, well, then where else are you going to look to set the high watermark for your compliance program, and then maybe kind of build outwards and try to harmonize from there? So there's a lot of concern, a lot of interest in, well, all right, what can we learn about what's going on elsewhere in the world, compliance-wise? I think the third biggest, topic that really kind of came up a lot in our discussions, and again, this is driven a lot by the articles we produce, but also, stories that come to us from people who are either looking to talk about a topic or they're just asking us to write more about it, is just the issue of technology in general. We hear a lot about artificial intelligence and compliance. Right. And it's one of those topics where a lot of people hear about it, but they don't really know what it is. You hear AI, what does that mean? You think, you're going to have a HAL, 9000 kind of monitor in your desk,
right.
Speaking to you in dulcet tones, and you're trying to do something. Or is it more? I mean, what is it really? There's a lot of interesting things going on with tech in terms of predictive analytics, in terms of being able to plow through large amounts of data that normally you would just sort of throw a lot of bodies at. It's about efficiency. It's about accuracy. What do these things mean to compliance professionals in terms of, when you have if the growing wisdom is that you have to largely automate a program for it to be super efficient, where does that leave the human compliance professional in terms of what do they do with it? What do those programs mean? What do they do? What do they look like? Trying to understand what the tools are at your disposal. So those are some of the things that we've been talking about quite a lot, and they kind of percolate in their own ways in various sessions.
So one of the things that excited me that I saw on the agenda was that Wei Chin will be speaking.
Yes.
And she is, well known within the compliance community, but not many people have actually had the chance to meet her or meet her unless they have been in an enforcement action or even see her
Yeah.
speak. So I was really thrilled to see that she and Pablo Quiones are on a Tuesday morning keynote panel. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I very much echo, your thoughts in terms of, Hui Chen has been, she had just joined, she just kind of entered the scene at last year's conference, and so she was a big topic of discussion, but hadn't really gotten a chance to do much of anything. So I think now we actually have her to speak, and we have an idea of what has she done over the last year or so. If I recall correctly, her contract is up relatively soon.
Right.
So I think this will be a good opportunity to get an idea of what's next for her, but also what kind of legacy will she be leaving behind. And what can compliance officers learn from her? I expect there will be a robust question and answer to this. A lot of people are just dying to hear from her. They all have their different questions, and like you said, she hasn't been super visible. I know Compliance Week really hasn't talked with her editorially because she's been very busy and kind of under wraps. So this is a really great opportunity for people to hear from her directly and to kind of have some direct interaction with her.
And the title of the topic, or rather the panel, is of course just the title, but it is Common Compliance Issues and Effective Programs. And in view of the Department of Justice Evaluation of Corporate Compliance Programs document released in February, which really focused on effectiveness and operationalization of compliance programs, I think a lot of people are going to be very interested in her thoughts on, one, how do you make a program effective, and two, how would you measure that, particularly from the government's perspective. So I think there's going to be a lot of interest in that panel and that topic.
Yeah, agreed. One of the things that has driven a lot of interest in these sessions, like you said, is measuring the effectiveness of your program, and it's a very slippery thing to grab a hold on. I would be personally very interested in hearing what she has to say about that. And I know that she's had some thoughts on how to measure effectiveness and how to create a better program, and I think that what we may see from her in terms of what she has to talk about, these are the sorts of things that could become the seeds for what percolate into compliance training programs down the line. So I think it's going to be a terrific. I think this could be one of those, if you come to just one session, that's the session you really ought to come to. It's going to be fantastic. But definitely stay for the whole show.
Now, Bill, we've talked about some of the overarching themes and the keynote highlights and the keynotes, but that just barely scratches the surface. In fact, it might not even scratch the surface of what Compliance Week really is, because it is a series of interactive presentations. It is small, dynamic groups that facilitate discussions. You have things like industry breakfasts. So maybe you could describe some of the things that might not jump out as top on the agenda, but really form the real meat of the Compliance Week experience.
That's a great question there, Tom. One of the things you hear a lot when you go to professional gatherings like this is a sense of community, and it's kind of a cliche at this point, but I think with Compliance Week it's really the case. I mean, you have a great opportunity for a lot of practitioners to get together. And compliance is it's an expanding profession, but still kind of a small community. And you have a great opportunity for people from a wide variety of industries to kind of get together and share their common experiences as compliance professionals and talk about what are those issues that even if you're from heavy industry and somebody else is from the services industry and somebody else is from financial services, what are the compliance issues that tie you all together and that, collectively keep you up at night and vex you. And this event is a great way to talk about those kind of, touch points that really cut across industry lines and in many cases even cut across, from large to medium to small organizations as well. The various breakout sessions that we're going to have, and there are there's a lot. I think there's certainly over 24 at this point, I think. In addition to the big keynotes, the various breakouts, they're smaller, more intimate conversations. They tend to be panels with 2 or 3 experts. Usually there are about 30 people in the room or so. But it's not just, death by PowerPoint. It's not people just getting up and lecturing. It's people sort of explaining to you, some overarching ideas. But often these are discussions that are very much driven by direct experience, by actual tradecraft that's been learned on the site, and conveyed directly to you in the audience. And it usually involves a very robust question and answer back and forth. And these are kind of workshop environments where people get an opportunity to ask the presenters point blank, some very specific questions about specific portions of a compliance program. And so you kind of get from that 30,000 foot level right down into the trenches in terms of, all right, well, how do you address particular challenges or opportunities in your compliance day to day? No matter where you are in the compliance profession or what your program looks like, there's going to be something here for you at this event that's going to touch upon something that really matters to you. And in these breakouts and in the industry breakfasts, these are areas we can really dig down on these particular topics. So I think they're a lot of fun to attend.
So there's 2, I'm not sure logistical issues, but maybe the physical setup is a better way to set this question up that I want to raise, because I find it really unique to Compliance Week, but really facilitates the sense of community that you've talked about. The first is the refreshment room, breakfast room, and the room where we have our cocktail party. The way it's set up is physically with tables, very few seats, but it allows a lot of people to get together, people who don't know each other, and may not congregate together, to have that sense of community and to talk to other people. And the cocktail party, which I think is on the Monday afternoon, a lot of regulators and people who don't even attend the conference will come to the cocktail party. So there's a very robust discussion about a multitude of issues. The second physical layout is the main hallway where the breakout rooms are generally off of. That's where the vendors go. And I really like it because it gives, first of all, the vendors are right up front in one place, but it gives you, as the participant, the opportunity to walk, talk, see, interact with the vendors in a very casual way, in a very professional way, but in a way that allows you to ask them specific communications without really being hard-sold.
Yeah.
So those 2 physical layouts I find very intriguing, but they actually, in my opinion, I really appreciate how they add to the entire conference experience.
I definitely agree with you there. From a, I guess from a personal perspective, as you know, I joined Compliance Week as editor-in-chief in very late 2015, and so one of the things that, in my first year with the publication that I was looking forward to the most was attending the conference, because I knew that, my onboarding wouldn't really be complete until I went to the 20.
That's a great point.
I went to the conference, and the refreshments room, the cocktail reception room. Yeah, it's set up in a way that it really fosters a really great introduction, to everybody who's on the scene. And what I was really struck by, and I thought was fantastic, was, there's just a real congenial atmosphere with all the professionals who are there, and then they're there to meet with each other and to talk with each other. It's a very open environment. Everybody's just there, just kind of just sort of talk about what moves them as a compliance professional, and it was a great way to meet a lot of people, but it was also a great way to talk about a lot of really important topics of the day in a very friendly manner, and it was a hugely valuable experience for me. More so than most other professional events that I've ever attended, over the course of my journalism career. As you know, I covered insurance and risk management for many, many years, and oftentimes when folks get together in that crowd, the conversations are great, but often people are talking about golf or talking about other things. At Compliance Week, it's friendly, but people are there to talk about their work life.
Right.
They're there to talk about what really moves them as a compliance professional, and it's just a very rich experience. And it's intimate without being cramped, which I think is really important.
That's a great phrase, intimate without being cramped.
Yeah, and the entire conference layout is like that, because you tend to have a kind of a central hallway from which all the various breakout rooms kind of extend. But you've got that meeting room, and you've got the vendor room, and it just makes for an easy passage back and forth. It's large enough that there's a lot to go and to see, but you don't feel like you're drowning in it. And you don't feel like you can't possibly see it all. You have the opportunity to see all the keynotes, to go through as many breakout sessions as you can handle, and you'll still have time to actually network with your peers and actually go see what's going on in the vendor room. And I'll tell you what, the exhibition room, to me, it's great, because, like you said, it's not a hard sell environment, but it's a great place to see, all right, what's going on. And I think of it more as an innovation lab than as a marketplace.
Right. And so so we're here at the Third-Party Risk Management and Oversight Conference, and one of the key topics has been technology, use of technology, how that interplays with the human element of compliance. And to your point on the Innovation Lab in Compliance Week, a lot of products are announced, new services are announced by vendors, but they're really there to educate and to provide information to anyone who wants to talk to them about the products or services they have, and I found it a very casual, free flow of information.
Yeah, and I think there's a great value to people who are new to the compliance world at this event, because even though there's lots of opportunities for you to get very deep into high-end, advanced compliance topics, if you're new to the profession, right, this is also a fantastic opportunity to get a lay of the land and understand who are the movers, the shakers, the players, and there's a real willingness to talk to people who are new to the business. I remember when I was there last year, seeing folks who were longtime compliance professionals, people who were, they'd been in the business for 5-6 years, and people who were just brand new to it, either coming out of school and trying to get a career in compliance going, or people who were professionals who were transitioning, from some other field into compliance, but had only been in the profession for a very short period of time. And no matter what your experience level was, there was a lot of open opportunity for people willing to talk with you and going, hey, let me share with you what I know. There's not a whole lot of, well, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you, kind of going on there. It's people are there, they're there to share what they know. And I think that's a really important part of the whole scene.
Let me pick up on that last point, because one of the things Compliance Week has consistently done is had government employees, investigators, prosecutors, DOJers, Department of Commerce representatives, FBI agents, Securities and Exchange Commission representatives speak, and not just on keynotes, but also on panels where they are very interactive with the audience and are very open to answering, pretty direct questions.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that any compliance practitioner can take full advantage of, is they can actually meet and talk to the regulators.
Yeah. Well, one of the big reasons why we hold this conference in Washington is so that we can get at easy access to all those regulatory folks. And it makes it very easy for them to come to our conference. They're willing to do so. They love to come. And frankly, they really enjoy being open and frank with their audience, because they would rather tell people proactively, hey, look, here's what we see. as potential flashpoints, or here are things that you can do to improve your compliance program. I mean, for most of these people, they would rather never actually meet with you in an enforcement environment. They're most happy when they're not having to do the worst part of their job, and they really appreciate it when compliance officers are able to act proactively and build a program that makes sure they never run afoul of the law. And they are only too happy to share with you what they know to make sure these are the major failings we see. If you do A, B, and C, that's a great way to make sure that we never have to meet under stressful circumstances. And to your point, the folks from regulatory agencies and from enforcement agencies, they love to share that inside knowledge that
Right.
it's kind of hard to come by otherwise.
Right. So, Bill, I'm really excited about this year's event. For anyone listening, they can see the agenda at events.complianceweek.com. I hope if you're listening, you will plan on joining us on May 22nd to 24th at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington. And I hope that we can continue this conversation because it sounds like just a fabulous event for 2017.
It'll be a great time, Tom, and I appreciate you having me on your show today, and look forward to seeing everybody in Washington in May.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox again. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of the FCPA Compliance Report. As promised, you can receive a discount of $300 for registration to Compliance Week 2017 by listening to this podcast and utilizing the following discount code, CW17 Tom Fox. That's all upper caps. That's CW17 Tom Fox. I will link to it in my show notes. If you've listened to this podcast on iTunes, I would greatly appreciate it if you would rate this podcast, as it would help our rankings and also help get the word out about one of the top podcasts in compliance. This is Tom Fox. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you'll join me again on the FCPA Compliance Report.